Here's what people need to understand about Obamacare and the implications that it has. You understand? America's in a lot of trouble, big trouble. Whereas this whole default thing, it's gonna happen. In fact, they want it to happen, and it's all by design. And what happens is if you correlate America with any great dynasty of the past, let's compare them to the Roman Empire. When you have a country that's way in over its head, that's in so much trouble and so much shit and so much debt, what they end up having to do is they have to sell their citizens into slavery. And when you think about what this whole Obamacare thing is, and this is only just a minute step of what this direction this country is going into, that's what's happening. Where when the Roman Empire collapsed, a lot of other great dynasties, the Soviet Union, the citizens were basically sold into slavery. And what that means is, whereas now a working father and mother, you know, both have a job and they're paying their bills and they got a little extra spending money, that they're getting by. You're gonna get to a point where that's not gonna be enough. And what's gonna happen is what they're trying to do is they're trying to collapse the middle class in this country. Just completely collapse it. And what middle class is a household that earns 50 grand or more. That's lower middle class. They want that gone. And it's all by design. Because the really rich people in this country, number one, they don't pay taxes. Number one, they're not of this country. They don't give a fuck. A lot of their money is offshore. A lot of their employees, if the government makes regulations, they outsource their employees. They don't care. They don't have to care. Because in all honesty, that's the beauty of capitalism. They did the top 20 richest people in the Western Hemisphere. And you look at a country like Mexico. It's a very impoverished country. You got people trying to escape to come to America all the time. At least 8 out of those 20 top richest, and at least 3 in the top 5 were Mexican. Rich, powerful billionaires. They don't give a fuck what happens to Mexico. They don't care. They don't have to care. And this Obama, who ran a whole campaign on spreading the wealth, he actually waived in the first year that the companies don't have to apply with Obamacare. Meaning that those same rich CEOs that he down talked, these millionaire CEOs that are supposed to spread the wealth and help out the middleman, they don't have to apply to a law that you, the working man, have to apply with or comply with or pay a fine. And there's compound interest on that fine. And really think about what that actually means. Rich people are out of the question. They don't pay taxes, and according to Obama, with this new law, they ain't gonna have to pay the tax next year. You will, the working class. And what that means is that if you refuse to take this healthcare law, you're gonna pay a fine, and the fine is gonna get bigger every year. The same way the credit cards sink people. Now, if I went out and I opened up a credit card, refused to make the payments, compound interest until I'm a slave in debt, yeah, it's fucked up that the credit cards use me like that, but technically I did that to myself. But if you have a kid in 2014, this kid is being born into a debt that this country made that kid has to pay off. People are going to start being born into debt into this country. You are going to accumulate a debt that this country made that you, the working person, has to pay off. And that's what this whole Obamacare and what you're going to start to see this country do, little by little by little, because this country's falling, and it's going to fall on the backs of everybody who worked their ass off in this country, every middle class working person who doesn't come from royalty, who doesn't come from rich families. We are being sold into slavery for whoever America owes their debts to. Whereas before you can work a job, maybe 2 jobs and get by, nah, you're gonna have to work from sun up to sundown, 3-4 jobs to pay for the skyrocketing food costs that's about to happen, to pay for these ridiculous taxes, and you ain't gonna be able to make ends meet. Well, you are, but you're barely gonna be able to pay for the fact that you're alive. You will be a slave. People say, oh, well, everybody's complaining because they got to dish out a little bit more money. But what about the poor people that can't afford? What about this? What about that? Let me tell you what's going to happen to poor people in this country. People that's below the working class. I'm talking about people that rely on government, welfare, food stamps. The one unique thing about this country that's about to completely be done with, in other third world countries where there's a lot of really rich people, ain't no welfare. You see they already cutting the welfare. The spigot is going to turn off. And what you will see in this country is what you see in all those other countries. Mass famine, mass death. That the people that really do rely on welfare and food stamps, you're going to fucking die. They're going to cut the spigot off. And they're going to go, oh, you can afford to eat? In those countries, children live in sewers. Sewers, like you open a manhole and there's whole families that live down there. There are still kings and queens in Africa with diamonds, everything, billionaires, rich, oil, all of that in Africa. But what do you see on TV? You see 80 cents a day to feed these starving child, and that's very real. And the majority of the population live like that. But there is a percentage. Africa is still the most richest continent, and there are people balling, making millions and billions living in Africa, living like kings and queens. That is real. And that's where America's headed. And people need to see that. People need to see that. People need to realize that. People need to understand that, because the American dream that they sold us is bullshit. There has to be master, there has to be slave in a capitalistic world. Americans realize that, and they use the African American as the guinea pig. And white people need to like really wake up, because the shit they did to us, they don't give a fuck. They about to do it to you too. They learned a lot by enslaving African Americans for 300 years, and that's what they're about to do to the rest of this country. And people need to realize that there's a lot of shit that's about to go on. But so what's the solution? There is none. There ain't no solution. What you gonna do? You know, this fucking jerk off that shot at the people in the TSA, killed TSA agents and cops, they're the slaves too. Just because they're the overseer. If I'm broke and I can't find a job and somebody says, hey, be my TSA agent, I need to feed my family, I'm gonna put that uniform on and work that job. So you're gonna kill me? You would never get close enough to anybody that makes decisions in this country to shoot at. You gonna, you know, even if you got a group and y'all all got in arms and wanted to fight the government, they're gonna send their cops at you. You're gonna shoot at the cops. You're shooting at other co-slaves, because they're gonna have to, they're in the same boat you're in, just because they got the badge on. United States military is the one thing keeping this country afloat, is how proficient and amazing this military is. And even if you did want to have a war, you still wouldn't get close to anybody who has any say in this country. So, but what's the solution? You gotta leave. You gotta leave. That's the only solution. And if you're smart, you leave before the shit gets rolled back. You know? Like they did way back, the Italians and the Irish.